Everyone, in this video I would like to talk about common diesel fuel misconceptions, so let's get right to it. First, I would like to briefly sum up what diesel fuel actually is. Generally speaking, any fuel specifically designed for diesel engines is diesel fuel. There exist several different types of diesel fuel. The most common diesel fuel in Europe is the Euro 590 fuel. However, diesel engines will also run on a huge variety of different fuels that are not exactly called diesel fuel. On the other hand, there are several different engines that aren't diesel engines that can run on diesel fuel. And that brings us to the first point, number one. The diesel engine was made for diesel fuel. And that is not correct. The diesel engine was designed to be the most efficient combustion engine physically possible, not to be an engine designed for a specific type of fuel. Rudolf Diesel initially made the broad statement that the diesel engine could run on any kind of fuel, but he soon figured that liquid fuels such as kerosene, petrol and lignin worked best. He also tested natural gas, which worked fine, and coal dust, which resulted in piston ring failure. Until diesel fuel was standardized in the late 1940s, diesel engines ran on cheap fuel oils, petroleum, kerosene, or creosote. In fact, large two-stroke diesel engines for marine vessels still use heavy fuel oils as their primary fuel. The most common fuel in Europe, Euro 590 diesel fuel, was only introduced in 1993, 100 years after Rudolf Diesel started development of the diesel engine. Number 2. Diesel fuel is a heavy fuel. This is a yes and no thing. Heavy fuel oils used in large two-stroke marine diesel engines have a high density of around 1 kilogram per cubic decimeter, which means that they technically are heavy fuels. On the other hand, regular on-road diesel fuel that is used in cars and lorries has a lower density of around 0.82 to 0.845 kilograms per cubic decimeter, which means that these fuels are approximately 15.5 to 18% lighter and thus not heavy fuels. Number 3. Diesel fuel contains more energy than petrol, which is why diesel engines are more efficient. And that is wrong. The energy content, also called the specific energy, and this is typically expressed as the lower heating value, depends upon the chemical elements the fuel is made of. Diesel fuel and petrol are very similar in this regard, thus their specific energy is approximately the same, something in the 41 to 43 megajoules per kilogram range. Diesel fuel has a higher density than petrol, which means that the energy content per volume is higher, but since specific fuel consumption is measured in mass of fuel per work performed, so grams per kilowatt hour, this does not matter. It is only important for refueling motor vehicles but has no effect upon engine efficiency. Number 4. Diesel fuel burns slower than petrol. And that is also not correct. The laminar flame velocity, which describes approximately how fast a flame travels through a tube filled with a mixture of fuel and air, depends upon temperature, pressure, air ratio, and the number of carbon atoms present in the fuel. As I have mentioned, diesel fuel and petrol have a very similar composition, so there are no significant differences. Under normal conditions, both petrol and diesel fuel will have a laminar flame velocity of approximately 40 centimeters per second, which is very slow, but it means that they burn at the same speed. A lot of people confuse burning diesel fuel with the combustion in a diesel engine. Note that these are not the same, and also note that the turbulent flame velocity concept has to be used in internal combustion engines because the laminar flame velocity doesn't work here. The combustion in a diesel engine is different from other combustion processes and results in the fuel burning slower, but that does not depend upon the type of fuel. A diesel engine running on petrol, and yes, such diesel engines actually exist, burn petrol slower than comparable spark ignition engines such as the Otto or the Wankler engine. Number 5. Diesel fuel is highly toxic. And this is another yes and no thing. There are diesel fuels that are highly toxic, such as heavy fuel oils. But diesel engines can also run on vegetable oils, and these are edible, or should I say drinkable. Regular diesel fuel, though, is typically distilled from petroleum and may contain not so healthy components. However, aromatics, which are among the most toxic components in petroleum based fuels, do not work very well in diesel engines and thus aren't contained within diesel fuel in high quantities. Another problematic component is sulfur, which can be converted into toxic sulfur dioxide in diesel engines due to the excess oxygen present during combustion. But modern diesel fuels do not contain sulfur in high quantities. Such fuels are often referred to as ULSD or ultra low sulfur diesel, and they are standard in many developed countries. But that's it for this video. I hope that you've learned something. Please leave comments and suggestions down below, and I will see you in the next video.